The Boys Diabolical, every episode ranked. The show is made up of 8 individual stories that form a part of a wider anthology, so I thought I'd put them up against each other and see which is best and which is the worst. So, here is The Boys Diabolical, every episode ranked. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Number 8. BFFs. The episode that I thought was the worst in the anthology was the episode titled BFFs. I personally found the humor in this episode a little bit cheap, an episode about somebody gaining a power to be able to control poop. It didn't feel like it had that much thinking behind it to a certain degree. It was just a light-hearted, silly episode, and it serves that purpose well, but it just didn't do it for me. The only thing I'd say it really had going for it was the fact that I feel the art style was very different to the others, and the exaggerated facial expressions were true to the art style that it adopted. The episode didn't really do that much or provide as much entertainment as many of the others in my opinion. Number 7. Nubian vs. Nubian. Nubian vs. Nubian was an interesting episode. It centered around 2 soups whose relationship had deteriorated and their child was adamant on keeping them together, as she believed that they still loved each other. The episode goes on and we see her get them back together, all in the end for her to realize that sometimes divorce is a good thing, rather than keeping 2 people together who don't really want to be. I thought the message was quite powerful, but it was definitely one of the more boring episodes that I feel we were given. Number 6. John and Son-hee. This was an episode where the main character felt the purest and most human out of all of the ones that we were introduced to. We had John, whose wife Son-hee only had a couple of days left to live. In a last-ditch attempt, he stole some Compound V and gave it to his wife. She managed to gain some powers, but the people in Vought were after them. You really sensed the desperation that he had to keep his wife alive, and the fact that he would do anything. Once everyone from Vought had been killed, you then saw that Son-hee felt like it wasn't right for her to be there, and that she had almost cheated death. What was killing her had evolved and was a physical presence in the world actually doing damage to other things, so she felt she had to sacrifice herself in order to destroy it. It was an incredibly sad episode, where love was the driving factor. I thought the art style was different to what I'd usually see and it complemented the story nicely, especially in the final 30 seconds. Number 5. Laser Baby's Day Out. I thought this was a great introduction to the show. As the first episode, we got a light-hearted, old-school style of episode where there was barely any dialogue, and we had a score that was accompanying the episode in a way that brought movement and suspense to the events on screen. It was quite a basic story, but it didn't feel basic in the sense that there wasn't much to it. Basic is essentially what it needed to be. It was the perfect combination of humor and the gore that we'd expect to see in the original show. Number 4. I'm Your Pusher. This was an episode where it was heavily focused on the soups and some appearances from the Seven and even Butcher Billy. This was taken directly from the comic and was focused on a dealer inserting something into a soup's fix. I thought this was a good one because we got to see the characters from the show, but it was a very straightforward linear story that was always going in one direction. I have to say the moments where he would be flying through the air absolutely crazy were so interesting to watch. They really got the chaotic, mental nature across the screen when it was occurring. This felt like one of the shorter ones out of the 8 episodes, but despite that, it definitely made an impact. Number 3. 1 + 1 = 2. The canonical episode that's connected to the boys. Supposedly the only one, and you could definitely tell that. It focused around Homelander's origin story into how he entered the Seven and became number 1. We saw a glimpse into his traumatic past, and personally, I think that's something that will continue over into Season 3. The relationship between Black Noir and Homelander was something that was developed, and was interesting to see in this episode. We saw the corruption in the Seven and how stories are fabricated to their advantage. I enjoyed watching the origins of Homelander. It provided the gore and darkness that we usually see in the original show, and it felt the most similar to what we would expect. Number 2. An animated short where pissed off soups kill their parents. A Justin Roiland special where this genuinely felt like part of the Rick and Morty universe. The art style was exactly what you'd expect to see in a Rick and Morty episode, and it suited the tone perfectly. Even the voice of Paperman was exactly like Morty. I liked the idea of the story of an underdog uprising where soups that adopted powers that were utterly useless or embarrassing were seeking revenge on their parents who bestowed them upon them. It felt familiar yet refreshing when watching, and it had that light touch humor that I feel you get with a Rick and Morty episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, I connected with the characters, and the driving narrative really shone through. It felt like a real ensemble piece. Number 1. Boyd in 3D. The episode that I think is the best in the entirety of the anthology is Boyd in 3D. I loved the art style, the characters, and the twist at the end. It was the only episode where we really had a twist. The story shone a light on social media and the fact it makes us feel we're not good enough, or need to be people that we're not, and I thought it was a powerful story for it to tackle. The cream that contained Compound V was in testing, and we got to see the effects that it had on Boyd. We saw Boyd get the looks he wanted, get famous, get his love, and then see it all come crumbling down. However, everything that we watched and the 11-minute journey that we went on didn't actually happen. The test at the start of the episode went wrong, and everything that we saw was all inside of his mind and over the span of a few seconds. It really reminded me of the Black Mirror episode playtest, and I thought it was clever, entertaining, and really engaging. It stood out for me out of all of the 8 episodes. I couldn't take my eyes off this one. So, there you have it, my ranking of the Boys Diabolical episodes from worst to best. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.